Hi, this is Amir Anzor, Chief Marketing Officer at Pakistan Software Export Board, where we run Tech Destination Pakistan. And it's an honor today to be interviewing one of the sharpest men that I've met in a very long time, Bill Faruki, who's a Pakistani American based out in Newport Beach, California. And that's where he is right now, while I am in Islamabad, Pakistan. And what we're going to speak about is, him committing in the last year alone, $34 million to Pakistan in various forms. But his startup, which is really maturing at quite a rapid pace, MindHyve.ai, and what that's all about. And we're going to talk about his story and how he became a successful American immigrant, first generation, and now he's able to bring so much money back into the country, remit not only to the US, but also to Pakistan and also places like Kenya. And he's changing the world through AI and how his AI journey began. So, Bill, thanks for being on. First, tell us your story of how you got started, how you became an immigrant into the US, and how you got into the digital field.
Thanks. Hi, Amr. How are you?
Good, good.
Thanks for the wonderful introduction. Yeah, I was born and raised in Karachi. I was born in 1971. I grew up in Karachi, spent, maybe a couple of years in Islamabad for a while during my, maybe 10, 11 years old. And then I immigrated to the States for about a year or two when I was about 12. Then came back to Karachi and I stayed there with my family in defense growing up. And I left, and I had a great time, right? Pakistan growing up, school, my friends, all the great stuff I used to do. Wonderful years of my life. Around about 1991, the situation, was not so good for Pakistanis in Pakistan. And so I left the country at the age of 20 and I immigrated to the United States in 1991. Briefly, I came back and then I moved back to America again. But for the most part, I laid my hat in the US in 1991, October. And I've been here for the most part ever since. So, my journey in the United States is 30 and 35-year journey now, which is getting close to almost half, definitely more than half my life, possibly close to two-thirds. And I came to the States and basically had to start from zero, right? I remember my first job I had, I worked for a blood bank lab, right? I didn't have a car. I lived in Culver City, Los Angeles, which is a middle class neighborhood with some family members. And I didn't have an apartment. And I used to take the bus to work every day. And I worked for some minimum wage job. And I grinded it out, right? And then I went to work for electronics retail store, also in LA. It was called Circuit City. They would sell computers and printers and monitors and TVs and home stereo systems. And I was good with computers. I was good with just working with computers because I had one of the earliest guys in Pakistan to actually have a PC. And so in America, I was good with computers. Nobody really knew much about PCs, so I started selling computers, and I did really well. Right. A little while later, fast forward a couple of months, I went to Texas to visit a family member, a cousin of mine. And while I was in Texas, I said, you know what? I'm going to join the army. I just, on the spur of the moment, decided to join the armed forces, and I signed up. And I served almost 4 years in the United States Armed Forces. I was stationed in Fort Sill, Oklahoma, which is the home of the field artillery. I got all my basic and advanced training in artillery in Fort Sill. I did a couple of stints around the country at various other bases, and that's really when I felt like I became an American. Right? I lived, ate, slept, bathed, went on military exercises, shaved, spit shine my shoes with Americans, for between 3 to 4 years. And we're talking about every kind of American. We're not talking about the Americans that you meet in LA or New York. We're talking about just your regular old American people, guys and girls from Wyoming and Nebraska and Oklahoma and Georgia, and just the good old Americans. And I became very much part of this country, their ethos, their mindset, the way they think, the way they talk, Americana, pop culture, U.S. religions, politics, whatever the hell a 20-year-old knows about politics, but whatever they're talking about. And I became assimilated into the culture. And while I have grown up being very westernized in my house, we spoke English at home, not Urdu growing up. My mother is half white, she's British, half British. I grew up in a very sort of Western home, and English is my mother tongue. I was still sort of a European Pakistani hybrid growing up in Pakistan. But when I came to America, I still felt like a foreigner. But after serving 3, 4 years in the army, when I got out in 1990, late 95, early 96, I was about as American gets. I mean, that was it. I got the culture, I got the jokes, I could crack the jokes. I didn't feel like a foreigner. I felt just like every other American who was maybe a third generation immigrant. And my journey went on. I became a stockbroker. I moved back to LA. I always wanted to be a stockbroker all my life. I never went to college. I didn't think college was for me, so I dropped out of college. I wasn't interested in college at all, and nobody gave us, anybody a job if you didn't have a 4 year degree. I found this one Indian branch manager for a bank that you guys have all probably heard the name of, called Bear Stearns. He gave me a job. I took it for almost no money. I was broke, but I got my license and I became a Series 7 registered representative. And one thing led to the other, and my entrepreneurship journey started. And at that time, I was in financial services. And it moved very quickly from explaining financial services and wealth management concepts to customers in America. I started actually trading. I was good at mathematics. I knew I was always very skilled with math and calculus and algebra and those kinds of things. I do them naturally. So automatically, my mind sort of moved away from, oh, stick your money in, I don't know, a bond fund or buy real estate portfolio, something boring. I went into more creative concepts such as complex option models and high leverage, high volatility trading strategies with commodities and commodity options and foreign exchange. And I did really well. I did really well for my customers. And I started a trading firm in 1997 in California. And during that time, and this is kind of how I'm leading into how I got into tech. During that time, I realized that all of my customers don't have an electronic mechanism where they should go to the website, some kind of website. And websites were just coming online in the mid 90s in those days. It was the days of AOL, right? When the T1 internet connections was considered high speed bandwidth. And I said, there's no website. We were the first to have a website for the company. I said, but there's no website where they can go to and they can look at their positions. They can look at how much money they've got invested in gold or soybeans or corn or foreign exchange or Eurodollar or even stocks and be able to price it and know at the end of the day that they were up or they were down. They used to call us on the phone and had to sit on a calculator and do the math. And so I said, God, I wish there could be a website, right? This is before E-Trade. This is before any Yahoo Finance. I said, I wish there was a website that somebody could do. And I turned around and talked to a bunch of people and could you build me a website? And there were, in those days, the websites were portfolios with pictures and animated GIF images of torches with flames. That was the stuff in those days. There was no like real e-commerce kind of website. And I said, I got to make this myself, and I don't know how to code. So I went to a bookstore and I bought a big fat book on HTML. And I taught myself HTML. And then I started creating a website and I realized, well, this is cool. I got a website going, but I can't connect it to anything. And I started doing a little research. There was no ChatGPT. There was no Google. In those days, there was a website called WebCrawler and AltaVista. And there was nothing on AltaVista and WebCrawler about how do I connect this static HTML page to some sort of live data feed that was coming in from Bloomberg, or in those days, there was something called DTN, where it would send you pricing over the internet. And I realized I needed to know scripting languages. And so I went back to that same bookstore and bought another big fat book on VBScript, which was the early predecessor to JavaScript. And I learned how to script. One thing led to the other. I brought this website online. It was killer. I put this website online. I actually connected it. So we had a satellite dish on top of the building. It was getting the stock market feeds and the commodity markets feeds coming in. From that satellite cable, there was a little like a box in my office, and it would go into that box, and I had an API connection to that box, and we were actually powering website. And that became a real-time stock quotation dissemination system over the web. And that thing went viral. Well, I would say viral. That's an exaggeration. There was no concept of virality in those. There were barely 15 people used the internet. But I mean, it became really popular. Okay. And one of the banks I did business with in Chicago saw that and said, this is cool, and told an exchange about it, one of the commodity exchange in Chicago. And that commodity exchange calls me and said, hey, listen, We're opening up our exchange to an API where you can actually send orders in electronically and get them filled. Because in those days, you had to pick up the phone, stockbrokers, you had to do what's called voice broking in those days. And he said, we're actually opening up for electronic order execution. Since you can get market quotations on your platform, do you think you can actually put a button that says buy and sell? And somebody presses buy, the order actually goes into the exchange? I said, I don't know, I'll try. And we connected to the Chicago Mercantile Exchange's order routing API, which is known as ORAPI in those days. This was before the fixed protocols were invented and everything else. And son of a gun, not only could you see the price of a commodity, you could click buy or sell and actually send an order in and buy 10 contracts of soybeans. It was revolutionary at that time. And E-Trade had just come online for stocks, but there's nothing for commodities. And the thing went gangbusters. Well, gangbusters, again, it's an arbitrary term. There's no measurement for what gangbusters means, but for me, it was gangbusters. And they made me an offer I couldn't refuse in the late 1999, or no, mid 2000, summer 2000. So I'm fast forwarding 4 years, and from the time I started the company, and they made me an offer I couldn't refuse. I sold the company, and they gave me a job to move to Chicago and be the chief technology officer for this clearinghouse, right? Bank slash clearinghouse, not bank as you know it, not the ATM kind of bank, like a commodities bank clearinghouse. I was like, wow, that's kind of cool. So I left. I left California in October of 2000 and moved to Chicago and became the chief technology officer for Linco Futures Group. And here I am. I'm 29 years old or whatever I was at that day, 29 years old, and I'm running an IT department of, I think at that time about 400 people. I believe it was about 400 people, and I was the smartest guy in the building. I was the only one who knew order routing. I knew order book management. I knew order execution. I knew the problems with fills. I knew everything that other people didn't know. And I became so good at coding, so damn good at coding, that I got a job offer for a company that was an affiliate and actually part of Microsoft themselves, a company called Avanade in Chicago. And Avanade was a newly started business, which was a partnership between Microsoft and Accenture. And all the really smartest developers, programmers would go, we used to go work for Microsoft Consulting Services, who are now working for Avanade. And so Avanade was the new brand for MCS, Microsoft Consulting Services. And so I went to work for Microsoft / Avanade. And I realized very quickly that I'm better than most of the programs, even in Microsoft. I was able to do things with code that they couldn't do. Just the way I think, I suppose. And so that started my coding career. I worked for Microsoft for a couple of years. My son was born in 2003. I couldn't fly around. I was flying Chicago, Redmond, Dublin, Ohio, I don't know, New Orleans, Houston, back to Redmond. It was crazy. I was on a plane. And my wife had a kid. And we're like, I got to quit. So I quit and I started my first software company. Built that, started a second software company in 2006. Raised money from Saudis. I went to Kingdom Holdings. Met with Sheikh Abdullah Al Ramazan, who was Prince Walid bin Talal's business partner. I met him in Geneva, Switzerland in 1998, 97. Raised a boatload of money. For me, it was a boatload of money. Built the world's first, many things. The world's first three-dimensional graphic user interface. Trading in those days used to have many monitors. And traders would spin around and look at monitors. It was crazy. So I came up with a three-dimensional user interface, which had a z-axis. And you were in 3D space. You could have your windows for the different markets. So you could have like London bonds here and Hong Kong equities here and Chicago energies here and US equities there in 3D space. And I created a situation where with a joystick, you could push the joystick forward or backwards, left or right, and you could fly this camera through 3D space like a first-person shooter video game. And you could twist the joystick to pan the camera left or right. So you can look at like London equities or Tokyo equities, right? Or US bonds. And then with the mouse, you could quickly trade. And then you could pan out and get like a holistic view of the global markets. And so that was a 3D user interface. That thing was called NeoStation. That was revolutionary at the time. I also came up with a new messaging protocol. In those days, to be able to send an order from your computer to an exchange went over a protocol called TCP/IP, and it was very slow because TCP/IP is a three-way handshake. Send the order, get the acknowledgement for the acknowledgement. So in that three-way handshake, there's latency over the wire. And when you're doing algorithmic trading, latency will kill you. It could cost you millions of dollars a minute. So I had to invent a single shot messaging protocol where I could just send the order and I didn't need any acknowledgements. And I had to do it in a way where it would bypass a lot of the routing protocols and routers and get that digital packet through your computer's network card onto the wire, through the router on the other side, into the machine in as quick as possible. So I invented a protocol called the NeoTick Reliable Transfer Protocol. It was a low latency protocol. It dropped order times from about a millisecond to about 1/10 of a millisecond, about 100 microseconds, which for anybody the viewers are listening to this, if they know anything about algorithmic trading, it's all about speed. And that thing was a game changer, 10x anything you could ever do in terms of profitability and arbitrage and stat arb and that sort of stuff. I also created some other risk management systems where you could look at risk between debt instruments, equity instruments, and tangible commodity-based instruments, and then look at the cross modeling of the financial risk and introduce currency valuations into it and look at a currency normalized risk portfolio of a global position, which was unheard of at that time. There was simply no way to do it. Okay? There was no way to look at your global risks that way. I did it, and so and so. And I flipped that company and sold that 4 years later. And that was my first significant fortune that I think I made for myself at that time. And I decided to retire. I took all my suits and literally gave them away to Goodwill. I stopped cutting my hair. I grew my hair long, and I started racing cars for fun. And so I became an amateur race car driver. I started racing the Ferrari GT series. I'm an adrenaline junkie. So I started doing crazy, bizarre things. I took up polo as a sport. I played polo. I raced cars. I went scuba diving. And I just had a good time. And then after a while, I got bored. And I started another company, Neotech. I rebooted it again. And then fast forward many years, I deviated away from financial services, from fintech and trading. In 2019, 2020, I decided to take all of my technology, all of my intellectual property, all of the cool things that I built over, God knows the last 10, 15 years, and deviate away from one industry and deviate into general purpose digital transformation. And that was the birth of a company called Deviate Infosystems in 2020. During this time, I was also looking at neural networks for financial forecasting. As you may have heard in the field of AI, those are called regression models. And I was looking at it for financial forecasting, financial modeling. And while I was doing some research on how to use some of my neural network technology that I've been previously using for financial forecasting, and I was trying to look at it, use those models to predict and do classification for a lot of other things. This was during, post-COVID. I was thinking about how we could predict pandemics and epidemics. I was trying to do financial modeling or classification modeling to figure out if climate change happens and you see an outbreak here, what is the velocity at which it may spread? And all of that, I was using transformer architecture to do a lot of this stuff. Transformer architectures became quite popular after 2017 when this paper was released, right? Called Attention is All You Need, which gave birth to ChatGPT. And so while OpenAI and Sam Altman were looking at transformer architecture to train it on knowledge and the internet, and hence came out the world's greatest personal digital assistant, which is ChatGPT, I was looking at transformer architecture to do different things to solve problems. At that time, there were mathematical problems. But through my research of trying to solve mathematical problems with transformer architecture, I started solving general purpose problems. Any problem, doesn't matter what the problem is. Is the problem how to treat a patient? Is the problem how to predict climate change? Is the problem how to argue a case in a courtroom? Is the problem how to answer a Sharia question from Quran and Hadith sciences? Whatever the problem is, I abstracted it to problem-solving architecture AI, which today is known as reasoning models. That's basically what they are, okay? And the way you train those models, that's something that's very unique to me and the way I do it. I went down a path of philosophy to train the models. A lot of people are doing reasoning. They try to do reasoning using mathematical problems or causal problems. There are all kinds of data sets that are publicly available where other researchers are trying to create data sets that can sort of get a transformer model to reason to a conclusion. I went down a very abstract path of just philosophical reasoning about 2 years ago, and I started training these models on, the three types of philosophical reasoning, which is deductive, inductive, and abductive. And once I got the model to think about things top-down, deductive reasoning, bottom-up, inductive reasoning, abductive, I started expanding the data sets into 6 types of reasoning, including causal reasoning and various other things. And most recently, the F5 series of the model, the 5th generation that I'm planning on releasing, it will have 12 types of reasoning, philosophical reasoning types, and meta reasoning, reasoning on top of reasoning about it. And so that gave birth to these cognitive models. And I also, along the way, invented a bunch of things. And here we are today. And I took a company that was worth zero 12 months ago, and it's worth borderline $3.5 billion, in 12 months. We're currently one of the fastest growing companies in the world, depending on how you measure fastest growing companies. But if you go to Crunchbase, and I encourage you and anybody that's watching this to go to crunchbase.com, it's a great website. It's independent, on analyzing, indexing companies. We're currently ranked in the top 11,000 or 10,000 out of 4 million companies in the world that they track, which puts me, I believe, in the 0.24 percentile of all companies. Our heat scores off the chart. Our growth scores off the chart. We're growing, and we're growing faster than SpaceX, Tesla, Salesforce, Oracle. I mean, any company of, just do a comparative analysis and look at us, our growth versus theirs. And then now we're estimating our 12-year annual recurring revenue will exceed $600 million, which by any standard, any financial analyst looks at that. The fastest growing company by revenue in history is a company called AnySphere. They're the creators of Cursor AI, and they went from $1 million to $108 million in 12 months, making them the fastest growing company by revenue in history. I have projections based on signed contracts and customers right now. I have projections, but assuming we don't blow up as a company and we fulfill all of our orders that we currently have in our pipeline, if we actually fulfill them, we would have exceeded 600 million in revenue, making us, bar none, the fastest growing company ever in the history of any business on the planet, and shattering the world record by 6 times. So that's a little history, and that's where we are.
Wow. So what was the eureka moment for MindHyve? What can you talk about? What was it that said, okay, I'm going to do MindHyve? What is it and what does it do?
Okay, so good. So MindHyve, Hive, HYVE, as you've noticed in our branding, is capitalized. It's an acronym. Okay, it's not a play on words. It's actually an acronym. Hive stands for hyper yielding vectorized entity. So Hive is an acronym for these digital employees. Each digital employee is actually a Hive. The digital doctor is a hyper yielding vectorized entity, not an agent. Okay, people generally call these things agents, but their definition of what an agent is and my definition of agent is completely different. Okay? Mine are hyper yielding vectorized entities. They're like self-aware, somewhat self-aware digital human beings, right? When I knew that I had many of them, right, at that time, there was no MindHyve at that time. I had this thing called Hive Labs, which is my own little pet project, which I do bizarre things and crazy things with AI. But when I knew I had this thing called Hive, an entity of some kind, I created many of them, and I trained them towards medical reasoning, legal reasoning, Islamic reasoning, real estate reasoning, financial reasoning. I created these 10 digital employees that you see on our website, MindHyve.ai. When I knew I could get these agents to talk to each other, these digital employees to talk to each other, much like you're the head of marketing for PSAP, I'm sure you have other team members. When you sit together and you're trying to do an agenda or further something, your team works together in an orchestrated way. But as humans, we kind of know the person's resume and what they do and what role they are by their title. We kind of infer it. And in time, teams start to work together in an orchestrated way. And if your team's really, really skilled, your orchestration's fantastic, and you move like a very well-oiled machine. And if the orchestration is not so good, you get inefficiencies. Well, to be able to get my digital employees to talk to each other and work in an orchestrated way, because in a hospital, you need not only a doctor, but you need an insurance specialist too for billing and coding. You need a financial person for forecasting. You need a lawyer for compliance. You'd probably need an ops person, right? So if you were to take these agents of mine and semi-autonomously run a hospital with it, or an airline with it, or the Pakistani government with it, or whatever you want, these digital employees have got to work together. And so I envisioned in my mind a protocol called swarm intelligence, where I could get these things to talk to each other. And once I was working on it, I was thinking about it. I was like, wow, this is kind of like a mind of hives. It's like this mind of mine, and each hive is like a neuron. And I visualized this picture. And if you actually look at the earlier logos of MindHyve, it looks like a globe with a bunch of dots on it. Those are little tiny hive entities in this bigger hive all working together, kind of like a hyper bees working in an orchestrated way around the queen bee. And so that gave birth to the name MindHyve. And this thing started to take on a life of its own. It was not an independent corporation at that time. It was very much something I had in my mind. That's actually formed, okay? And then it picked up traction. And then I said, bye, I actually got to listen to business. So I took my technology that was mine in my head and what I'd actually created, which was experimental and actually becoming production grade. And I said, I got to take this to market. And so last year in July, actually, we just turned 1 year old on July the 24th, a couple of days ago. And last year on July 24th, I formed MindHyve.ai. And then subsequently, I started expanding around the world as we were going to market. And the first country we picked to deploy this tech to in e-learning, learning agentic learning management systems and e-medicine through agentic clinical decision support systems. The first country I picked to bring this to was Pakistan. And I infused money with it too and started hiring. But then we are taking it to Africa, the East African Commission, the EAC, which is the general 11 and 14 countries. We're bringing it to Turkey, Saudi Arabia. And most recently, the state of California has locked on to us, and they've somewhere between 10 to 15 universities and charter schools and community colleges have been brought to us and said, hey, bring your e-learning platform to the state of California, and so on and so forth. It's been great.
So you're doing 1.7 million in Pakistan on agentic AI learning. What is agentic AI learning? Now, I know you're a very technical person, but for a layman or laywoman that doesn't understand it at all, for bureaucrats that are trying to get their grips with it, what are these 1.7 million people in Pakistan going to be learning?
Sure. Well, let's first make sure we unpack and demystify this term agentic. Okay. And this is going to be a little immersive, Amr. So when I ask you a question, you're going to have to go come off mute. So you are currently the chief marketing officer for P7. You were hired for a role, right? And as a part of your role, one of the things you're doing is this podcast. It's one of the, I'm sure, many initiatives you had, right? Now, I want to ask you a question. What is from your perspective, what is your purpose in this hour and a half of time you're giving me? Just in a nutshell, tell me in a layman's terms, what's your purpose of this meeting?
It's one is to promote you to our audience. So it gives you more exposure because I want to inspire more people like you to become like you. And you've generously donated now 34 million, committed 34 million to the Pakistani ecosystem. So I want to encourage more people like that. Then to learn from you selfishly, so that I can learn what you're talking about AI, but then also to pass that knowledge on to the listeners who are listening in.
Okay, so I'm sure there are many other things, but we've highlighted three things. One, promote me and honor the commitment we're making. Two, promote investments in Pakistan. And three, selfishly learn something. Fine. So you've got, let's just say you've got three call to actions for yourself in this. You currently have purpose. And to achieve your purpose, Abu Bakr and the company you work for, the business you work for, have empowered you and given you agency to do your job. Okay, so you go about your job, you are skilled to do your job, you have goals that you have to achieve, whatever those are. One of them is this, whatever outcomes you're hoping to achieve out of this podcast. You mentioned three of them. And you go about your job every day when you check in for work with agency. So agency, this term agency means that I currently have agency to run my business. When I'm in the office, when I go home, I have agency to manage my relationship with my wife, my marriage. I have agency with my children. So agency is something humans have. It's the way we go about achieving our purpose. Agentic AI is AI with agency. It's a very, very misunderstood term. Just because the first five alphabets of the word agentic happen to be AGENT, do not mistake it with agents. Agents, and I'll get this, I'll take you to the education pathway, but let's start with core foundational concepts. Agents is just process automation using generative AI. So if you look at the agents in Salesforce, or if you look at the agents that Microsoft released with Copilot, or you look at any of the agents that people are talking about, all they're basically doing is saying there's a task I got to do. I often, when I lecture, I talk about the Copilot agent in Microsoft PowerPoint. If you go prompt it and say, cook me food, it'll short circuit. It can't. If you say, tell me about climate change, it'll say, I'm sorry, I can't do that. If you say, make me a PowerPoint about climate change, boom, the thing comes alive, right? And it goes and researches climate change. It creates 7 slides. It pulls the photographs down, and boom, it goes through 7, 8, I counted one standard 12 steps using generative AI to create your PowerPoint. That is what agent means. When I invented this word agent, and I'm standing here publicly telling the planet that I invented the word agent, because we were using this word agent on our company's website. And one day I'll show you the old website from March of 2023. We were the first ones to ever coin this term agent when used in conjunction with artificial intelligence, right? And then Microsoft came out with Copilot and started calling it agent. And because the size of Microsoft's marketing, people started thinking that's what agents were. And I changed the term agent on my website to Digital Employee because they have agency. Anyway, so agents and agentic AI is not the same. So agentic AI means AI that knows its purpose, and if either left to itself in an autonomous way or collaborating with a human driver in a semi-autonomous way, or completely driven by a human in a non-autonomous way, that AI is going to go down, it's going to execute its agency to do what it's trained to do. In the case of learning, Arthur AI, which is my agentic AI platform's job, its agency, its purpose is to teach. Now, how it teaches, what tone of voice it uses, let's just say it's teaching geography, what tone of voice it uses when explaining geography principles, what choice of word it selects from the English vocabulary, frames of reference it gives, analogies it uses, content it creates, the order in which it teaches you. Should I teach you the Ottoman Empire first and focus on the Turkish regions for geography? Should I start with America? Should I start with the Americas in week 1 and then move over across the globe to like the eastern side of Russia and China, Japan, and then move across? In which order do I teach you? Which lesson do I teach you? What should I infuse into each lesson? What is the content I create? It figures it out on its own. It has the agency to teach. So in our agentic system for learning, for example, when a student is enrolled on the platform, you have to give a couple of data points about the student. Your name, obviously. Your gender is very important because teach the girls slightly different, teach the guys. We've seen this in clinical psychology. Girls understand things a little differently than boys, and also depending on your age, right? You know, when you're growing up in Pakistan, also girls mature faster than boys. It's actually psychologically proven to be true that girls at a younger age tend to be more wise in terms of picking up things than boys are, but then boys tend to exceed a little further. It's a weird, paradigm, but nevertheless, the agent needs to know: are you a girl or you're a boy? How old are you? Where do you live? And what is your mother tongue? And what ethnicity do you belong to? And the reason for that is your mother tongue means if you're learning in English but processing in Urdu, the choice of words I use to teach you must match. For example, if I'm a native English speaker and you're speaking to me in English, everything you're saying is for the most part having a one-to-one retention and comprehension in me. But if you're communicating to me in English and that's not my mother tongue and I'm thinking in Urdu and I'm communicating back with you, I'm thinking Urdu but outputting in English, that's where misunderstandings happen. It's bad use of vocabulary, not the correct word, the analogy wasn't right, et cetera, et cetera. So the AI first starts with learning the student and it needs these couple of data points. And after that, it puts the student through a 30, I believe, to 45 question neuropsychological profile, which is learning your cognitive learning profile into 4 elements, okay, of learning style. And after it analyzes you, it creates an LCP, which is a learning cognitive profile. And based upon that, it creates a custom pedagogy as to how to teach Ahmed anything. I know his brain. I know where he's from. I know the language he thinks in. I know how old he is. I know he grew up in the UK. I understand when I talk to him, I'm going to give London references. I'll call it the tube, not the train. Okay. I'm going to use this version of English because he's a native English speaker, not some simplified version. And it just knows you. And then after that, that is the problem, the child, and the target is to teach them geography over 16 weeks or 12 weeks or 1 semester or 1 year or 5 years. Then the AI goes about its agency, its purpose, and it takes that student down a path of learning and assessments and learning and assessments and learning and all along in its assessments, not only are you, the student, learning that you didn't learn something, you've got something wrong, but the AI is also learning that you got a question wrong, and it tests you every 30 minutes, I believe. And so every 30 minutes, a little checkpoint, 5 questions. How are you doing? How are you doing? How are you doing? How are you doing? And so it's tracking you, and the machine is learning, also becoming better, and you're becoming better. But over time, the comprehension level that you, the student, will achieve is significantly higher than taking some child from Gujranwala or Rawalpindi and sticking them in Beacon House or some school where English is the primary medium and giving them a textbook, right, that we just went and bought that was published by McGraw-Hill, United States, and hope and expect that some Punjabi child, right, or Sindhi child who's going to this nice school is going to absorb that material the way the author of that textbook expected them to. That is that I'm sure before prior AI we had no choice, but now with AI it's customized. And so that is how we do agentic e-learning. And the number you threw out there, 1.7 million, that is roughly the number of students we believe that are going to be using our agentic e-learning system in Pakistan in the next 12 months. And it's not all traditional schools. Some are vocational learners. Some are learning a skill so they can get a visa and go to the bank and get a job. Some are becoming potentially nurses or midwives on it. Some, like through the Al Khidmat Bano Kabul Foundation, are learning social media marketing or web development or entrepreneurship. Some are your actual traditional universities that we know about them in Pakistan, right? I think we have a pilot right now with the Ziauddin Hospital, right? We have a pilot going on with them. That's a very classical university. We've got another one going on somewhere else. So that 1.7 million is a mix of vocational students, right? Vocational learners who need to just get a job. Some have to get credentialized to be able to get a visa so we can export them out. And they need to learn something to get that visa and go, right? They need that certificate. Some just want to get involved in the gig economy and get a gig on Upwork, and they don't understand social media marketing, or they don't even know how to market themselves. They need to take a marketing course, how to market the UK population, how to market the US population, how to market the Singapore population. Some might be in the hospitality business and want to get a job learning about Asian culture because they want a job at Movenpick Islamabad. And let's just say theoretically, Movenpick Islamabad has a lot of Asian tourists and they don't understand how to relate to them. They would like to take a 4-week course or maybe a 4-day course on Asian culture. So they have something to talk about when they greet the customer. It could be anything. But that's how we've figured that we're going to be teaching roughly about 1.7 million people in Pakistan. That's just the start. Now, using that logic, we're doing the same thing in Kenya. And very soon, we'll be making announcements. If you go to PR News, you'll see all the announcements we made. In the next 6 months, you'll see Zambia, Rwanda, Ghana, Southern Sudan, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Ethiopia, Nigeria, and more. You'll see, obviously, Turkey, we're already there, but you'll see the Baltic regions, which are close to the borders on the north side of Turkey. You'll probably see Greece and Italy. You'll hear about those names coming out of MindHyve. You're going to see some massive announcements out of the state of California. I mean, this is the 4th largest economy in the planet with about $4.1 trillion. They spend every year $120 billion on just education. Think about that in terms of GDP. What they spend just in terms of education alone is bigger than most country GDPs. And they need equalization. We call this equalization. Better outcomes is called equalization. And so you'll hear some major announcements coming out of the state of California and so on and so forth. We are bringing these agentic e-learning. We don't call them LMSs. It's not an LMS. I mean, Canvas or Blackboard or the LMS that you know about, these are really good web dashboards where you have to upload your own content into it. The curriculum, the mechanism which the student is taught, and the order in which they're taught, the content they're taught is predefined by somebody else's agency. The author of the book's agency to write that book. The faculty's agency is to determine the curriculum and the order. The human's agency. So if one human is very good and they have the agency to write a book on chemistry, it doesn't mean it's going to be absorbed by every chemistry student. So we put the agency now into the AI to personalize the education in terms of content. And if the faculty or the administration of the best universities, Harvard University world, believes that they have the right curriculum to teach physics or law at Harvard University, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's the right curriculum, the right ordering, or the right syllabus for every single human being, because they took that agency. So the LMS systems that are available today, the agency is a human. This is just a content dissemination system with videos from Khan Academy, possibly, or wherever they buy it. I've never even actually used one of these things, but I've been seeing screenshots of it with PDFs that have been uploaded. So we're not like that. So we don't call it an LMS. We call it an intelligent e-learning platform, agentic AI.
Excellent.
Hopefully that was simple enough for people to understand.
Yeah, I mean, let me ask a few questions. So basically, what you're saying is that this agent, it creates the curriculum, it teaches you, and it customizes the learning for you, right? And now if I'm a 48-year old man, I get a different and I want to learn digital marketing, I'll get a different sort of curriculum than someone who's 18 and speaks Urdu, for instance, right? And
Correct.
we'll get to the same outcome, but it might take them a bit longer to get there than it might do for myself. Now, Pakistan has,
No, but one second, let me pause you.
yeah,
Everything you said was fine until you said it might take them a little longer. No, they will all graduate in 4 weeks, whatever the deadline is. It will not
okay.
take them any longer, any less. It's just that the manner in which they will learn, meaning the velocity in which they learn, the order of the content given to them day over day, week over week, month over month, and the nature of the content that is personalized and tailored to your brain, to your cognitive profile. It learns you through a psychological profile first,
Mhm.
and based upon that psychological profile, the agent has now learned your brain to the extent it needs to. It doesn't need to learn your brain for how you deal with emotional crises, for example, something you might see in the news. It's not going to learn your brain from that perspective. The neuropsych exam is trained towards learning your brain for how you learn. And then everything is going to be done to you. But you'll all pass out or test out at the same deadline, and you'll all test very well. But how it gets you there, it's the agencies and the agent's hands.
And the yeah, that's really, really exciting. And Pakistan has, I believe, the second highest number of out of school kids. Uh, could this be a solution for that problem? Could you teach kids and what would you do? Would you give them a smartphone, or how would you motivate them to learn? Or do they still need schools?
Yeah. So that's a two-part question. Wait, one, can we do it? And two, how do we do it? So I'll tackle the second part. How do we do it? It can be done over a tablet. We prototyped this on 13-inch up to 15-inch tablets, disconnected device. It works great, right? Works great. And we've also got audio in it, so it can also talk to you. So you can plug headphones or Bluetooth into the tablet, put the headphones on, and while you're reading the lesson, you're also hearing the lesson. And we support up to 100 languages and 2,100 dialects. So if you want to learn an Urdu, you can learn Urdu. You want to learn Punjabi, you can actually. You can even the text can be emitted in Urdu, and we support right to left, left to right. So it's a multilingual platform. I don't know if you really want to encourage kids to be learning physics in Urdu, for example, but if they need a reference point in Urdu, fine. But we're trying to encourage mainstream languages. But yeah, it supports it. So they could be doing it on a tablet, they could be doing it with a headphone, and they can be doing it in a native language. Currently, we do not support a disconnected model, which means currently the version we have right now of Arthur AI requires a Wi-Fi connection or SIM connection of some kind, but we are prototyping a very lightweight reasoning model that could get embedded onto a tablet with 4 gigs of RAM and potentially put that into a disconnect environment. So that's the answer to part 2 of your question, which is how would you do it? The part 1 was, can we do it? Not only am I going to say, yes, we can, I'm going to give you an example. So you said Pakistan has a very high no enrollment or dropout ratio. Okay, basically kids that are simply not in school. Now we've looked into that, right? There's some kids that just don't give a damn, Amr. They don't want to go to school. They want to pick mangoes from a tree, whatever. You simply cannot educate somebody who has no interest whatsoever in educating them. That's a whole different problem to tackle, right? And a lot of developing nations, especially nations that are heavily dependent on agriculture, have an ethos in the family that you must build the lines or you must do whatever you do, and school is for the birds, right? And there's simply nothing you do about that. We see that around the world. Pakistan's not the only country. But then there are other people that are not in school because they don't feel they're going to get anything out of school, or they feel that what they can get out of school with the amount of money they have is not going to be worth anything because they don't have the money, or they have a little bit of money they can't get to the school, or the school within an earshot of them sucks and they want to go to, I don't know, some really good school, but they can't get there. For those reasons, it's more like a feeling of dejection and dismay, which is why they're not in the school, not because they don't want to go to school. Okay. So we cater to those kinds of kids too. Now, in that situation, I'm going to give you a real world example. I don't know if you check out my social media, but we were in Sacramento on Friday, and I was giving a speech at what looked like a college graduation, right? That is an organization called Miracle University. Their whole ethos is based on 0 dropout rates in Sacramento. Currently, Sacramento is in the top 10 percentile of all cities in the United States of America in terms of number of dropouts. It's dropouts because kids are in foster homes. It's dropouts because kids crime or whatever the reason is, they drop out of high school. Okay, and so the whole principle of Miracle University is to bring them out of the dropout and to know I'm no longer a dropout, right? And so we're working with them, and they're using our licenses soon, um, because we can create hope at the end of the tunnel for these children or adults. Listen, this is a systemic problem. It doesn't just apply to kids. Okay, it applies to guys our age too. Okay, I don't know how old you are. I'm 53, and believe me, there are a lot of people who are 53 right now that wish they could go back to school and get some kind of skill certification and get a better job. Believe me, they need it. The poverty is everywhere. America's not that rich that people think that it's not that rich. Generally speaking, across 440 million people, it's not a wealthy nation at large. So everybody wants more money. And so dropouts, quote unquote, whether they're actually in high school and they quit, never went into high school, or frankly, they were in some kind of 4-year program and they quit because they couldn't afford it, whatever the reasons, yes, our AI can make it very affordable. I'll give you a simple example. In the United States, if a semester is 12 weeks, and you look at a institution fees for the lowest cost college in the country, in California, will run about 13,000 US in tuition. And if there's 2 semesters, you're looking at about $6,500 per semester. Now, if you're in school for 12 weeks and you divide it by the number of hours you actually spend on campus, it works out to be roughly $16.25 per day to go to UCLA. Okay? It costs 40 cents per day to be on my platform. And you can get the same level of education, probably test out higher. In fact, I'm only even going to say probably, I know you can test out higher and learn everything that UCL is teaching you from your house. So it's cost affordable. So in Pakistan, you take a platform that's distributable. You don't necessarily need a brick and mortar building. You should. I encourage it. I encourage working in a collaborative environment with some instructor overseeing you, right? But allow the technology to take you down that journey and let the teacher move into sort of a managerial, sort of a maternal paternal role in the classroom. So I still encourage brick and mortar buildings, but the light at the end of the tunnel for these learners of any age group is that it's affordable and it's high quality. I will test higher, and it is measured to what I'm trying to do. And that gets me a job. And anybody will be willing to go back to school if they can get a job. One other thing we do on our e-learning platform that I've neglected to touch on, which is critical, is that I believe in AI literacy and AI fluency. Meaning, I don't believe in teaching how to machine learn a system. Who cares, man? Really, at the end of the day, right? I mean, I don't need to know how ibuprofen or Panadol was made to be able to know how to use it. I am literate and fluent, right, on pain medications, and I can go to the pharmacy and get it. I don't even know how it's created. I just know that's the right one for a headache, right? So I don't promote go teach everybody ML engineering. That's insane. That's no nonsense. Right? That means go teach everybody mechanical engineering to teach you how to drive a damn car. That's crazy. So AI fluency is the new critical skill. So because I know that no matter what degree you get, it's irrelevant. Whatever degree you get, if you're not fluent in AI and not, meaning don't have an AI first mind, and you're not thinking about using AI for everything in some way, and you're not literate which tool to use for what job, then I don't care what degree you get, you're going to have a very hard time getting employed. I'm telling you right now, very, very, very hard time getting any kind of employment because the employer is the buyer of your service, the buyer of your degree. That buyer doesn't care about your degree. That buyer cares that do you know how to use AI to do a job? And that's all they care about. They don't care what school you went to as long as you're effective. And if you're fluent with AI and you're literate with AI, you're very effective and frankly exponentially more productive than the non-AI user. So in Arthur, in our e-learning platform, not only teaching standard course content, whether that is urology at Medical University in Turkey, which is a health sciences school, or physics, or marketing, or finance and cash flow management, debt equity financing, doesn't matter what the channel of content is, we're infusing AI literacy and fluency into the content. And we're making that student, that learner, not only learn that content, but learn how to use AI in that field so that when they graduate, not only do they have a foundational knowledge of that topic, they're incredibly fluent and literate on AI usage in that field. So when they get out, believe me, they'll get it. They've got a best chance of getting a job. And so that knowledge, that what I just told you, this vision that I just told you, that gets the dropout rates low. Proven at Miracle University. When they understand that they got to grind it out for 4 years in high school, but when they grind it out, not only do they know the subject matter, the foundational subject matter, whatever that was they were learning in high school, they're also now have developed an AI first mentality, AI thinking, and they know how to use the tools, and they know, and you can give them statistics about how they can get employed. They're like, you know what, I'll sign up for that. I'll do 4 years of this. And so, yes, a very long answer to a question, but yes, it will lower the dropout rates for sure.
Amazing. Amazing. So you've got multiple platforms. So you've got education, healthcare, you've got what are all the platforms that you have? And is it that each one of them is basically an agent that specializes in, for instance, education or healthcare, or are they different completely, or is the programming behind them the
So let's
same?
take this word agent out of the equation. Let's not use the word agent, because you say agent, I don't know how many people are going to be watching this podcast, or they're going to think, oh, you've got some Salesforce agent. No, let's call them digital employees, okay? Because I need to distinguish, because if we call agent, then what happens is people think they know what agents are, or they watch some YouTube, and they're like, well, how the hell can an agent do that? And then it sounds like it's all hype and it doesn't make any sense. So let's take this word agent out. It's agentic AI. So the question I think you want to ask me is, which verticals do you have an agentic AI solution for, right? And I will tell you that at this point right now, live go-to-market, I have an agentic AI system for education, powered by a education-trained, purpose-driven digital employee. And that digital employee is called Arthur. It's on our website. You look it up, MindHyve.ai. Go look. You'll see, scroll down the page, you'll see Arthur. Arthur is the professor, as we call him. It is a digital employee with purpose to teach. And that digital employee powers an agentic AI system called Arthur AI. Arthur AI is the e-learning platform. And that we're live with right now in the market. And that Arthur AI actually has 6 versions of it. Kind of like if you go to like HubSpot, or you go to like Oracle, and you see the Oracle company, the brand, you'll see multiple types of databases, different types of products for different types of market segments. Or if you go to look at a CRM system, have different types of products, different market segments. Similarly, we're an enterprise system for learning, but under that umbrella of learning, there's 6 types of products. There's vocational learning platform, corporate learning platform, which means CEOs or HR departments don't have to hire corporate trainers. You can just take this corporate learning platform and you can upskill your employees. I mean, PSET could use it. Let's just say you want to upskill everybody on American business etiquette, right? You would probably have to hire a corporate trainer and bring them in, or you could just have our e-learning platform, right? And you could put in course content on American business etiquette or American vernacular. Or maybe you want to be able to have, I don't know, maybe you want to learn about FACTA. FACTA is an American law that requires the banks in Pakistan to do due diligence with US natural citizens. And they seem to be clueless on FACTA law, right? Maybe it's a bank in Pakistan that needs to upskill employees. So we have one product called Arthur AI, which is for the vocational institutions. Bano Kabul would be an example. Anybody wants to teach a vocation. The second is the corporate learning platform. That the buyer of that would be companies that want to upskill their employees. Then we have the homeschooling edition, and that's for parents that buy it for their homeschooling for their children. Then we have the personal learning platform. That's guys like me and you, girls like people that we know can buy it for themselves, right? And teach themselves anything they want. Case in point, I was prototyping this and I was flying to Japan, and I wanted to learn a little bit about Kyoto history on the plane. And I used my own AI to teach me. It was a, I don't know, 12-hour flight. And I spent a good 6 hours learning about the Shinto religion, which is very prevalent in Kyoto, right? I wanted to know, understand the culture a little bit. And so I took a personal lesson for myself, right? You could do personal lessons. Maybe you want to be a PhD in rocket science, or maybe you just want to learn about a culture or learn about Islam. Maybe you want to learn more about your deen. You know, maybe you don't understand something. So that's the personal learning platform, that's support. So there's vocational, there's corporate, there's homeschooling, there's personal, and then there's the two that everybody thinks learning is all about, which is, you know, first grade through 12th grade or first grade through 10th grade, and then university platforms. So that's 6 products that we're live with right now for e-learning, and in many countries. And then we've got another one that's almost out of dev stage. And that is, well, almost out of beta testing stage, which should be coming live soon. And that is the e-medicine platform, or the clinical decision support system, or clinical intelligence platform. And that has 4 versions. One is a traditional clinical decision support system. It will assist the doctor in doing a diagnosis on anyone. A differential diagnosis, it gives probability estimations, tells you you most likely have this, and in the alternative, you probably have that. It makes recommendations for additional tests that would be required. It does radiology reads, hematology reads, pathology reads, audiology reads. It works like a doctor, right? So it'll do a full-blown diagnostic on the human. It will also administer treatment plan and recommend the doctor this patient should be taking these drugs. And it's also locale specific. So when you use that system, it's known as Chiron AI, and use it in Pakistan, and it diagnoses to the Pakistani ethnicities, genomics, culture, it understands the Pakistani population. And when you take that same system and use it in, say, Kenya, or use it in New Zealand, it pivots to the genomics of that region. So it asks a lot of questions about the patient, about the genomics, and so on and so forth. And beyond that, even the drug treatments it does, like for example, in Pakistan, it'll recommend paracetamol or Panadol. In America, it'll recommend ibuprofen. Also, when prescribing Panadol in Pakistan, the dosing is different. The dosing for ibuprofen in America, so it understands dosing units. It also understands the drug names. It also does drug interaction checks. So that's the clinical decision support system. We're not ready with that yet. And coming right behind it are 3 more in the healthcare field, and that's 1 for radiology, 1 for blood work hematology, and 1 for pathology. So that's 6 in e-learning that are live, 4 for e-medicine that are coming online. Then we have 1 that's still in dev for law called Justine AI, based upon the legal agent Justine. And we have 1 for finance, which will include wealth management, asset management, stock analysis, all that kind of stuff, balance sheet management. And that's called Eli, ELI AI. That's still under development. And then we have 1 personal family assistant, spiritual guidance, spiritual companion called Theo, based on theology, and that's still in development.
Amazing. And how have you built all these? Do you have a team that specializes in finance that you've hired, and then they do that, and then each one of those in the education sector, you have a team that's building that out? How are you building it, or are the agents building it themselves?
That's it. Yeah. If you know AI, you don't need specialists anymore. No, we don't have any medical subject matter experts or legal subject matter experts or financial subject. AI itself is developing the AI, and you simply can't outpace it. Even in when we built our clinical intelligence platform, we were initially consulting with physicians, and it was so difficult because an internal medicine physician thinks about medicine a certain way, an oncologist thinks about the workflows differently, a neonatologist, and we were going so crazy. We just said, "Wait, pause, pause, pause." We went to our own AI over time, and our AI knew more than the collective of physicians. So we just let the AI write the code, right? So no, we don't have subject. We do bring in subject matter experts afterwards for the peer reviews. Like when we built that clinical decision support system, we peer reviewed it, meaning we brought in physicians to do a diagnosis on a case, on a medical case, and gave that same medical case to the AI and saw who diagnosed better and won. We've never had a single error ever in 2 years with the clinical system, right? So we've not used the subject matter expert, meaning the doctor or the teacher or the lawyer or the financial, to train them on. We don't need that. AI knows more about that subject than they do. But we absolutely have brought them in later for peer reviews, for cohort analysis, right? We want to test Chiron against the doctor, or Justine against the lawyer, or Eli against the financial professional, or Arthur against the teacher. And we've brought in the SMEs later, but not while developing it. We've stayed purely unbiased and let the AI do the design and not the humans.
Okay,
And
and
right
so if I was thinking about it selfishly for the Pakistan Software Export Board or the Ministry of IT and Telecom, we could potentially use Arthur AI, which is your education platform for the corporate learning, and teach businesses how to do sales in the US. Could we do that? So that
absolutely.
basically they could learn how to do, yeah, sales in the US and get clients in the US from here.
Perfect example, we're using it internally in my own company. Let me give you an example. You have to sell something We got to sell something. You have to learn how to do business with countries and people. We have to learn to do business with country people. You think my staff in America in Newport Beach knows African culture, the Swahili language, compliance laws in Kenya, the GDP and how people spend in Kenyan shilling? We have no clue. But how do we get penetration? We use our own e-learning platform internally. We're learning about the Kenyan culture. We're learning about the balance of trade. We're learning about their banking protocols. We're learning about compliance and setting up companies. We're learning about taxation in Kenya. We're learning about hiring and firing policies in Kenya. We have our own internal staff learning Kenya and Turkey and Saudi Arabia and Qatar and Zambia and countries that I never even knew, a country like Eritrea that we have to go to in Africa, right? So we are using our own e-learning platform internally to upskill our own staff so we can cater to the needs of our customers. In fact, you will love this, Amir, that the marketing is very locale specific, right? Where American companies screw up a lot is American companies don't get penetration and traction overseas because they don't respect Asian etiquette when advertising in China. I don't know if you know this, but when in China, anything other than red or yellow is considered very bad. Americans, especially tech companies, love to go with these minimalistic themes, and it comes with grays and whites and blacks, and that's actually quite offensive to the Chinese eye. And they recognize that these idiot Americans, they don't respect our culture, so they don't buy. Now, in the Middle East, you can't use certain kinds of images. Like you put a picture of somebody on an image in marketing, it's haram, and many Salafis will consider it to be haram, and they will not like that. And you'll just ruin your company's brand. And not because we're trying to do it, because we're ignorant about the culture. The way we market in Turkey, and the way we market in Saudi, and the way we market in Kenya, and the way we will commence our marketing blitz in Pakistan and in Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and Malaysia is locale specific. And we have to learn ourselves how to market to global nations. We have to be culturally sensitive to them. And marketing doesn't mean trade shows. When I turn on my marketing machine, we have a lethal social media paid advertising marketing machine. I can spend an ungodly sum of money every week and get so much traction in a region that my AI is so powerful, I can get my conversion ratios over 10%. If I get 1 million views and my conversion is a click to my landing page, I can literally spend money. My AI is so culturally sensitive, and we're so culturally sensitive, we're so effective that my CTAs, my click-through ratio, CTRs, I'm over 10%. I can have 100,000 views on my website if I want to, because we learned culturally sensitive marketing through Arthur in our internal corporation. And then we give that to the marketing team. That marketing creates these ad campaigns, and they're lethally effective. And then we get these massive amounts of viewership on our website, and each landing page is culturally aligned. When we release Arthur in Pakistan, you will see a culturally aligned Urdu and English landing page where the colors, the vernacular, the words, the advertising, everything, Pakistanis will love it. Americans may not like it, Pakistanis love it. So yes, we use it. I always like to give long answers to short questions when I do podcasts or lectures, because I try to generalize it for everybody, to the audience. But yes, in your example, you can use it for upskilling internally. The whole nation of Pakistan can use it for upskilling on marketing to foreigners, on pricing to foreigners, on contract creations and proposal writing to foreigners, on how to compete with Accenture or Tata, in the Upwork market, on how to write your damn profile on LinkedIn. I look at Pakistani profiles on LinkedIn, I'm shocked these guys are making any living whatsoever. I can't even believe the way the profiles are written. They don't even know how to market themselves on LinkedIn. So when they do make that cold call, or they send that email out to that US CEO, the Pakistani entrepreneurs, and I click on their LinkedIn profile, there's either nothing there, or they got a picture from the last Dolki they were attending, right? Or you know what I mean? Or the English is terrible in the profile. It doesn't say they have no targeted messaging. And so it's a shocker that we're at 3.5 billion right now. We should be at 20 billion with the amount of people we have. But we're just not, just like in agriculture, we're not doing good yield farming. We get terrible results out of our crops. We are getting very bad results out of an incredibly passionate, intelligent, motivated, honest, hardworking group of people, because we don't know how to brand our country. We don't know how to brand the citizens of our country. We don't have a cohesive marketing plan. Yes, Arthur should be used by every business to upskill the government and the people who need to create that revenue for themselves and improve exports. Marketing and branding and messaging and proposal writing and contract negotiations and pricing and payment systems and everything that it takes to bring a dollar into your bank account. You should be using it right now to upskill. I'll even give you guys a good deal on it. I promise you. I don't want to make a lot of money. I've said this openly in Pakistan. Whatever my costs are, plus a couple of percentage points, I'm happy with that. I'm not trying to get rich off of Pakistan. We're doing a damn good job getting very wealthy very fast overseas. But I will work with Pakistan. I will bring this Arthur agentic system. I have staff in Islamabad. I have a head of operations, people that are mobilized right now. We're scaling. I think I'm supposed to hire. I've made a commitment in April to hire between 1,500 to 5,000 people in Pakistan. But when I said that on camera, notice one thing. I didn't say 1,500 to 5,000 software engineers. I don't need 5,000 software engineers. I need 50 software engineers. I need 1,500 to 5,000 business-minded people at every level. We need ops and operations, compliance, marketing, distribution, customer support, cybersecurity, IT support. Yes, of course, engineering. We need all of that. And so I'm going to give jobs, inshallah, but it won't be necessarily for engineering, but I have to upskill all these people first before I can start hiring them. They're not ready at this point right now to handle my US customer base or my Turkish customer base. So I have that problem. I need to upskill my employees. You have that problem. You should upskill your employees. And this platform is available to you guys to do that in the whole country to upskill and get to be a player on a global stage. That's when you hit 10 billion in revenue exports.
So could some company that's thinking about it, can they go and use Arthur AI on your website now and use a credit card and pay for it? Or how does that process work? I mean, if let's say I run ABC Incorporated and based in Islamabad with about 50 employees and I want to grow my company, I want to help them market better, can I go on MindHyve.ai and sign up, or do I have to speak to an agent, or how does it work?
No, we are releasing right now in Pakistan. You can't access the e-learning platform from there. It's limited release in certain countries. We haven't opened it up for access in Pakistan. But when we do, you'll go to a website. It's not MindHyve website. You will go to a website. The domain is, I believe, avagrid.com. Avagrid is it's Ava Education. It's arthurgrid.com. Okay, so the Arthur Grid is my global cloud environment that hosts up Arthur. Okay, you'll go to a website called arthurgrid.com. You can't access Pakistan right now. And when you go to that website, you will see a landing page for Arthur. And there'll be a menu at the top. It'll say products, right? And you'll click it, and there'll be the 6 that we talked about. One says corporate learning. You'll click on that. It'll take you to a page which says how many licenses do you want. It's normally 1 license per employee, usually, right? And so it's a monthly fee per employee. And we support up to almost an unlimited number of courses that the company's HR department can put into the platform. So all the companies, usually the way the system works is a company comes on board, pick a company PSEB, right? The Arthur will learn PSEB very quickly on its own, and it'll recommend to you, let's just say you're in charge of corporate upskilling the company, Amir. And when we activate Arthur for PSEB, it'll very quickly learn what PSEB does, and it will recommend probably 50 courses to you that you guys should need. And I'm telling you, probably 45 of the 50 will be dead on point for what you wanted. There'll be courses they didn't even realize you guys should be learning. It's that intelligent, Arthur. So it'll recommend a course catalog. You'll be like, yeah, that's great. We'll select all of them. You'll put them in your course library, right? Then you'll buy the licenses. I don't know how many employees you guys have. You buy whatever number of licenses. And yes, there will be a payment mechanism, right? We're currently trying to figure out the best way to do it in Pakistan. We have Stripe globally, and it works in most places. We quite haven't found exactly the most frictionless way to do it in Pakistan, but we're working on it. Inshallah, it will happen very soon. But that is correct. So you'll be able to hit a website, you'll be able to select corporate learning platform. When you sign in as an admin, it'll say, what is the name of your company? And you'll say PSEB, and it'll be a drop down. It says, are you referring to the Pakistan Software Export Board? And you'll say yes. And instantaneously, it'll do a RIVE internet search of PSEB. I'll say, I know exactly who you are. You are the Pakistan Software Export. This is your agenda. This is your mandate. This is your leadership. Great. Is this the company? It is. Move forward. It'll be like, okay, Arthur's thinking. And Arthur will think. He'll think like, you look at your watch, 10 seconds later, Arthur will be like, thank you, Amir. After doing some thorough thinking, I believe these are the 50 courses you need. And you look at them and go, wow, this is great. And you'll check, add them to your library. And then it'll say, okay, now how many people do you want to enroll? and you'll say, let's start off with 50, and you'll set the number to 50. If it goes over a certain threshold, you have to contact enterprise sales, and that's when you book a meeting with us. But up to, I think, a certain number of licenses, you can buy it right there and like, connect your credit card, whatever, pay for it, and now you've got your subscription, and then you just send an invitation to all your employees. So you've got 50 licenses, for example, and you create an invitation list, upload a spreadsheet, send one to Abu Bakr, send one to Aspandiar, send one to these people, and boom, boom, they got the invitations. They get a little invite in the inbox, said, Amir and Zur is invited you to join the Arthur platform for pizza. Click here to set up your profile, and there you go.
Wow. Excellent. And you're at the heart of, as you said, the fourth biggest economy in the world, which is California. It's always ahead in education. And this is what you're telling us that is coming to the world. And it's not coming 5 years later. It's this year in 2025 or in the next.
It's not coming. It's very much active.
It's
It's very much alive and being deployed, being used. It's just that in Pakistan right now, I wanted to make sure we had HEC approval, that we were aligned with the curriculum, and we just got that. I think like a week or so ago, we got an announcement that we were aligned with certain curriculum standards. And my
Wow.
staff is doing their thing. I mean, I can't oversee all of our agendas, but I keep it in report back. But there are actively pilots right now in your country, in Pakistan, in our country, actively running to make sure it works according to Pakistan guides, compliant. My cloud works well. There's some of we're shaking out some loose feathers, really, but then we're just going gangbusters. And so it's not coming. It's very much there right now as we speak.
Wow. And what do you think it is about the American system that brings in the innovation? You mentioned that you earlier on that you got really immersed into the American way of living when you joined the army and you live with people from Oklahoma to Wyoming and all this. Because I want to understand, because global innovation seems to be coming from the US. And although the internet is globalized, right? Like in theory, Cursor.ai, the $10 billion company that Pakistani Karachi kid like you also founded your company in California. That Cursor.ai was in Boston or MIT. Why weren't you two in Karachi doing these billion-dollar companies? And why were you in the US? What do you think it is?
Again, you asked me a composite question. Question one was, why does innovation seem to come again and again out of America? What is this pattern? And second, why aren't we in Pakistan, right? Let's answer the first question. I can give you a tactical answer, and I can give you a philosophical answer. The question was, why does this innovation continue to keep streaming out of the borders of the United States of America, and that too out of the state of California, ironically, right? It's a philosophical question, Amir. I've lived here a long time, and I consider myself to be a relatively intelligent person. I'm an observer of sociology, right? I'm just always observing people and wondering why people do the things they do. I've been a very curious kid since I was a child. It got me in a lot of trouble too growing up. But I'll say this. One fundamental difference between the American ethos and the Pakistani ethos is the American ethos has no damn culture. They don't really care about culture. They don't have cultural curses here like we do in Pakistan growing up, right? There is no anything's possible in this country. Now, I'm not saying that you're necessarily encouraged over here. Everybody's encouraged. 440 million people are necessarily encouraged to go be innovative. I'm not saying that, but having your own identity and being able to be who you want to be, whether that is a janitor or a musician or you are encouraged. It's this the nature of the American psyche that is go be whoever the hell you want to be, man. You want to wear your hair long, wear your hair long. You don't want to wear any hair, don't wear any hair. You want to have a earring, have a earring. Don't want to have a earring, don't have a earring. Want to go to music school, go to music school. Want to start a business, good luck. You'll probably go bankrupt, but try again, right? It's just a nature of the American population, the American people, which are a non-judgmental, non-culturally influenced, aligned system. And that gives people breathing room in whatever it is they do, whether it's a choice of spouse or the haircut their kid has, or choice of school, or career they choose. There's a lot of freedom. There's a lot of cultural freedom. Forget about religious freedom and all other freedoms that Trump talks about and the Americans have always been talking about for 400 years we've been around, which is, the land of the free. We really are free. We're free to think. And when there's freedom of thought, 1% or 1/10 of 1% of those 100 million people, 400 million people are going to wind up shooting out the park, right? And there you go. Now there's Bill Gates. I don't give a damn about school. Doesn't matter to me. I'm dropping out of Harvard. I got an idea. I'm going to go do it. And voila, there's Microsoft. Steve Jobs. I don't want to go to Stanford. That doesn't make any sense to me, right? I really want to design this really cool user interface. I'm going to walk around campus with no shoes on, and I really don't care what people think. I'm creative. I want to do something. Mark Zuckerberg. I need to beat friends. I need a better way for guys and girls to date on Harvard's campus, and I don't really need to be in school. I just want to go do my thing, man. And Steve Jobs and Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and all these tech tycoons that you hear about, they're creative people. And America is a country that respects your opinion, has no judgment, and says, go do your thing. It's the American way. Now, what's interesting, though, is that I was having this analysis with somebody else the other day. You don't hear of any banking tycoons or supply chain tycoons or telecom tycoons or logistics tycoons or agriculture or automotive tycoons, but you hear of tech tycoons all the time. Why is there no Elon Musk in logistics? Why is there no Steve Jobs in banking? The reason is because software technology is a very creative art. It's much like fine arts or music. It's a very creative thing. To create tech, it takes the same kind of abstract brain as Picasso did when he painted a picture, or Mozart or Beethoven did when he created a simple creative mind. And so these creative minds wind up starting out of basements, right? But then they become these trillion-dollar companies, right? But it's that creative mind, and America fosters creativity. Banking, it doesn't take a creative mind. It doesn't creative about banking. There's nothing creative about supply chain management. There's nothing creative about pharmaceuticals. I mean, there's some degree of creativity, but it's very much a product that the product market fit's very well known. But software, you can create anything. So product market fit is very difficult in software. If you don't get it right, you'll get it wrong, right? So America, number one, you see a lot of this innovation, that too coming down into tech, that too coming out of California, because California is just that state in America that is probably the most creative of all the 50 states. Anything goes. That's why it's so liberal. It's so left-wing. It's so progressive. The LGBTQ movement started over here. Cannabis smoking became legalized here. Schooling is probably the best here. It's just a very progressive state as a country. And because of that progressive nature, it's $4.1 trillion. It's no joke, right? I was Fiona Mara, who is the treasurer of the state of California, who controls the economy, basically. She's the minister of finance, if you will, for California. She and I have become very close friends. You've seen her in pictures with me on social media. I often talk about what it is about this powerhouse, a juggernaut in the economy. She goes, it's just the creative nature of people coming to California. I guess maybe it's the sun, the beaches, whatever. Second question. So that's why this innovation comes out of America. This is a culture-free country. Okay. And it comes with no cultural curses. And it's one of the biggest challenges immigrant families like ours have when they come here is the kids are born and raised here and they're culture-free kids. And we have this, I'm going to say in Urdu, Ghosla mentality, which means you come from a bird nest, right? And you come to America and you're trying to bring your culture here because that's all we ever knew in Pakistan. The way you dress is culturally driven. The food you eat is culturally driven. The way you greet people is culturally driven. Whose house you go to is culturally driven. The way you praise, sometimes it's misaligned a little bit with textbook Islam. It's very much culture. So culturally driven, so darn country built on culture. It's one of the reasons I left. I left Pakistan because I was sick and tired of being indoctrinated into this herd mentality. I felt stifled. I really did. I promise you. I mean, I'm not kidding. Anybody, my friends who know me from Karachi growing up at the Sin Club, they'll call me a coconut because I was brown on the inside, Gura on the inside, right? Because I resisted the culture. I remember coming to school once after watching a Billy Idol concert in London, and I really didn't give a damn. I came back home. I had braids in my hair. I was 17 years old. I went to Shaheen, who had a hair salon in Clifton, and I dyed my hair platinum blonde. And I showed up at school platinum blonde hair. I couldn't care less whether it was appropriate or inappropriate. I went to the Karachi Sin Club, which my parents were members of, those with platinum blonde hair. Unheard of. I really I'm a creative guy. So that's the reason why you don't see it in Pakistan. That's the reason why people leave. They leave for many reasons. they leave. I mean, I didn't need to leave financially. We were fine. It wasn't like I was hard up for cash or anything. I left because, I feed my family. No, I left because I don't want to live there.
Wow. Wow. So at Pakistan Software Export Board, we've done about 3.8 billion in exports, and our target is
Congratulations, by the way.
15 billion. Well, your company alone is worth almost as much, or pretty much as much. But how do we get to 15 billion? How do we 10x this number? How do we get to 38 billion? How would you do that in 5 years if you were Prime Minister of Pakistan or the Minister of IT?
I think I've said this to Sheza. I have a meeting with, I think, tomorrow again. I've said this to Sheza before. I have said this to numerous very influential and powerful people in Pakistan, that upskilling, the concept of upskilling needs to change. Pakistan, once again, is that education first cultural curse. Pakistan thinks that I'm not going to speak in Urdu. If I go get an education, miraculously money is going to appear. And that money at scale is miraculously going to take you from 3.8 to 4.8, and 4.8 is going to bulge. It's once again, there yours, right there. It's a systemic cultural curse that we can't change our thinking. Upskilling in Pakistan or upskilling in any country means that your skill is augmented with your knowledge, and your knowledge is augmented with your skill. All of the education that we do in Pakistan is knowledge-based information dissemination. It's not a skill. And we hope that the human has the skill innately on their own to monetize their knowledge that they just got. No, they don't. They do not innately have the skill to monetize their knowledge. Okay, if you come to a California campus of Stanford or something, you're not only going to learn computer sciences, you're going to be drinking coffee at the local Starbucks with a bunch of entrepreneurial kids, right? So you're going to get the skill and the knowledge simultaneously. In Pakistan, you're not getting the skill. The skill is what's killing us. The only thing that's holding back your exports right now is our skill or lack thereof in being able to promote ourselves. One, price ourselves. Two, communicate a risk mitigation strategy, acknowledge the risks, and then communicate a risk mitigation strategy to your customer, whether that customer is a country or a small business owner in America when we choose to export our services. Identify and mitigate the risk. Paper, contract, document the relationship in such a way where there is a continuous ongoing revenue stream that goes for a long time. In Pakistan, they're so short-sighted, I've noticed, that they get a gig for 3 months. When the paperwork comes out, they don't even bother to try to negotiate a longer-term relationship. It's like they're so damn happy that they got $30 an hour, $20 an hour for the next 50 hours that they didn't bother to farm that lead, which was me, and see, is there a better relationship I can get? You say more than I can do? Sir, Mr. Faruki, Bilal Saab, I'm doing this deal here right now, I'm going to do you a solid, but can we look a little bit more at your business? If I can prove to you I can deliver, I would like some kind of early warning signal from you right now that you will allow me to grow my business and your business. You know what I mean? Growth, this whole growth mentality doesn't exist. So we don't know how to market ourselves. Or we do, obviously, that's why we're 3.8 billion. So I can't say that we don't. We do. We're just not doing a really good job. We're not scaling. We're not optimizing it. We're bad at marketing. We're bad at pricing. We're bad at contracting. We're bad at scaling. And we're bad just generally product market fit, right? And these are all just 5 off the top of the head things that I'm talking about, which are known fall in the skills category. We have all this knowledge. Believe me, I got every guy in Pakistan. I can go to Peshawar, I can go to Karachi, I can go to Lahore, and man, there are certificates coming out of the wazoo. Google stamp here, Amazon stamp here, Plum stamp here. Guy, there's credentials. If I took all the paper in Pakistan and I weighed it, it's probably the Amazon forest was the paper of credentials in the country. Everyone's credentialized. My son has got an MBA this, my daughter's got a PhD that, my person is MBBS this person is CS that, Falana's PhD this. Everyone's all about the credential. But at the end of the day, especially with AI today, especially with AI holding all the credentials on the planet, ChatGPT is the most credentialed tool you can ever get. It's got a PhD on everything, Ahmed. You know that, I know that, we all know that, right? So the credentials are gone. All you're left with is the skills, and the skills we don't have. I proposed, I mean, try it out. Take my Arthur corporate platform. Let me give you guys a couple of courses just for peace. I'll give it to you for free. Put Abu Bakr on it, get you on it, get a couple people on it, right? Try it yourself. See if you don't upskill yourself. Even if you don't upskill to 100%, it may just teach you a couple of things with your own intelligence. You'll be able to extrapolate from there and become upskilled, right? But at least it might give you an indication or something if I tell you that you didn't even know you didn't know. How do we upskill when we don't know what we don't know? But this thing will at least cover that gap for you. So we the way to get to 10 billion, the way to get to 100 billion. Forget about 10 million. That's a very, very small. I don't call those are not interesting goals. That's a 300% growth. Bogus. For a country of 255 million people, 300% is a low marker. I'd like to set stretch goals for the country. As I call them in my own company, I set stretch goals. I think if you can achieve them, but I would shoot for like a 25 billion or 38. If you have 3.8, go 10x. Do a 38 billion, set that goal. That's a Silicon Valley goal. That's a true Silicon Valley goal, right? You talk to Silicon Valley CEO, they think can't 10x it and then get out of my office. Most private equity companies, if you go to Thiel Capital or Google Ventures or SoftBank, if you don't have a 10x strategy, you will get about 15 minutes of their time. You got to have a 10x strategy, right? Pakistan's a startup. 10x goal, just upskill your staff. I promise you. That's all you need. Forget about the knowledge. Just upskill.
And we can do this upskilling through using Arthur AI much faster.
100%. 100%. I mean, there's certain things you can't do. Like, for example, there's a certain kind of skill that requires lab work of some kind, physical labor involved in the skill, right? Obviously, Arthur can't do that. I don't have robotics available today where you can work with a robot, right? But anything that is text to visual based upskilling, 100% Arthur can do that.
So, like for instance, what I in my experience, what America is so great at is teaching you about sales, right? So,
Yeah.
Death of a Salesman was a really famous American play, but apart from that, every Fortune 500 company, they'll teach you about sales. So these sales courses we could teach using the Arthur AI platform.
Correct. And that, not, yes, of course. And also what type of sales? There's many methodologies in sales. There's the assumptive close. There's solution sales. There's this, there's that. There's a book by Ryan Holiday called Growth Hacker Marketing. He talks about how to do viral marketing. And, then there's a book called Lean Startup by Eric Ries. He talks about how to run lean businesses, right? Every one of these books, they all talk about how to basically get your product out there, how to get your hustle done, right? And that's called sales, right? And even the sales changes a little bit of what you're selling, right? And so we got skilled with sales. Arthur will not only teach you how to sell, but it will be so targeted to what are you selling? Are you selling medical billing coding? By the way, it's a shocker people still doing that because AI is doing it. But are you selling medical billing coding? Oh, so how do you sell that? So Arthur won't just teach you solution sales, generally speaking. It's that personalized content for sales is going to be so targeted to what is the service you have and what is the market you're trying to sell it to. And that sales that's going to teach you is going to be laser beam. Because I told you, it's an agent, right? It has agency. It learns the problem and gets you to the goal. So if you say, teach me sales, ask me like, okay, what am I teaching sales for? Are you trying to sell medical devices, footballs, right? Or geopolitical intelligence papers? What are you selling? I'm selling geopolitical intelligence papers. Okay, thank you. To who? To your next door neighbor or to the president of Malaysia? Ideally, I'd like to sell to the countries. Good. Which countries? South Asia, Africa, the whole world. Gotcha. Okay, so you've got geopolitical intelligence documents and copyrighted documents you want to sell. You want to be a research institute. Fantastic. Now let me teach you how to sell. So, and then it's going to precision it to what you're trying to do. So not only will Arthur teach you how to sell, it's not some generic Khan Academy or Coursera type of course on sales. No, this is precision education to a target. And that's where the effectiveness comes out of it. Otherwise, all you're doing is just giving somebody yet another credential on, oh, good, I took a 4-week course on sales. It's all theoretical, Amir. Move away and tell Pakistan to move away from theoretical educational systems, even if it's teaching sales, and make it practical. And that's very hard because that means you got to hire a corporate trainer for every company, and they got to literally go to each one of your employees and target. What do you do, Zarwa? What do you do, Amir? What do you do, Abu Bakr? Let me teach you about how to sell. Let me teach you, Amir, how to sell. Let me teach you, Zarwa, how to sell. Right? That's too much time. Arthur can do that at scale.
Excellent. And for a 40-something or someone, older than 40 years old that's not into AI yet, what do you think it'll take them to get into AI and understand all this, what you're talking about? Can they retrain themselves?
Do they use a phone or do they text anybody?
Yeah,
Do they send a WhatsApp message to anybody?
yeah,
Can't they enter those very same alphabets that make up those very same sentences to their friends on text or on WhatsApp into a text box to ChatGPT?
yeah.
That's it. That's all they got to do.
Okay. And just keep
That's all
learning
they have
from
to
that.
do. Just turn to ChatGPT for questions instead of calling a next door neighbor and saying, "Yeah, what should I go study tomorrow? Where do you want to go eat?" Just develop an AI first mindset. And it's as easy as typing it into a ChatGPT text box the same way you type it in a WhatsApp text box. I don't see why it's so hard for people to understand. You don't need to be AI literate.
Hmm.
You don't need to know language models and hallucinations and tokens and forget about all that garbage. Who cares? That's what OpenAI figured out. Guys like me, we deal with it. At the end of the day, you got a product in hand, right? It's a phone, figure it out, start ChatGPT, and type in, "Hi, I'm Amr. I have a penchant for sushi. I live in Islamabad. Can you go online and tell me what the best sushi restaurants are?" That's it. "Hi, I'm Amr. I'm the chief marketing officer for Pakistan Software Export Board. Can you go online and learn about them and let me know when you're done?" Goes, "I'm done. Pakistan Software Export, blah, blah, blah." Okay. "Yeah, I'm Amr and Zur. I'm the chief marketing officer. Can you imagine what my job is?" And ChatGPT will come back and say, "I can imagine your job as the chief marketing officer of Pakistan Software Export. What must mean this?" "Correct. Can you please teach me how to sell it to become better at my job?" Boom, you're done. That's called AI fluency. You're fluent with the AI. Like I'm fluent with you. You and I were going back and forth. We're very fluently carrying on a conversation. I'm fluent with the AI. How hard is that to do? You don't have, it doesn't take much. It just takes getting, breaking down this invisible barrier that people have in their heads where they want to talk to a human, but they can't talk to the AI. It's a psychological problem. It's not a technical problem. It's a psychological problem. They have no problem talking to their phones when they know on the other end of that device is a human. But if they talk to ChatGPT or on the other end of that device, it's not a human, it's AI. I don't know why they short circuit humans. And this part we don't understand. So just turn to ChatGPT for everything. It's not hard.
And what do you think is a difference in the AI world and era between developing world and developed world? I mean, is there going to be a difference? Is there, for instance, like when we are using tokens or paying, for instance, I'm paying for ChatGPT right now, and I pay $20 a month. Now, $20 a month when I was based on my British salary wasn't that much. But on a Pakistani salary, it might be a lot more for people. And so is it going to be because the same number of tokens are being used and compute power is being used? Is it going to be like a lot more expensive for developed world so they can't afford the GPTs?
So don't use ChatGPT. As a country, you've got data centers. Go host up a countrywide llama model. I mean, we spent God knows how many billions of rupees setting up, hosting up firewalls for the country, right? Why can't we just as a nation, you got data centers, you don't need trillions of dollars, just host up a national level llama model. Llama self-hosted, the one that by Meta Technology, self-hosted model. Host up a national level DeepSeek model.
Hmm. No,
And let people
but
download Pakistan version of ChatGPT and we give it to them for 50 bucks a month, rupees a month. How hard is that? It's not.
I think it's a UAE that gave away ChatGPT for free for all its citizens. So what do you? But you don't think that there's much of a difference now for a kid in Karachi to a kid in LA?
The world has been equalized. I wrote a paper on it 2 years ago called The Great Equalizer. It's on my blog. I'll be happy to send it to you later. There's a YouTube video called Equalization Equalizer. That was the ethos of the company. Everything has been equalized. The PhD in Pakistan is now equalized by the metric graduate in Sakkar. The doctor has been equalized by the non-doctor. The nation has been equalized. Everything has been equalized. You've just got to learn how to use the tool that changes the equalization in your favor. That's all you got to do. Okay.
Hmm.
And you've got to do it at scale. Everything's been equalized. And so the difference between the developing nations and developed nations is going to be equalized. Why do you think Trump is freaking out with this AI for good bill? And he just released a bill in America and he told the states that if you bring too much bureaucracy in with all this data governance nonsense that they're all panicking about, and you stifle innovation, I'm going to pull back federal funding. You can't tell the states don't do it because the states are self-governing, right? Kind of like the HEC Punjab is self-governing from the HEC Sindh. And all the Minister of Education federal can do is give some guidance. But at the end of the day, it is the state's, province's job. So I guess the worst that the federal government can do is penalize, the province if there's any federal funding. So all America has to do is basically become AI's purse. And so Trump is struggling because he knows the developing nations are going to leapfrog him because we've got so much bureaucracy here in America, so much in education alone that the teachers in high schools were saying, don't use ChatGPT. And you're handicapping the kid now. And so what did he do? He whacked the entire Department of Education. That's like Shabazz Sharif getting up one morning and firing the federal minister of education and the entire department. That's it. Can you imagine? That's basically what Trump did. He killed the entire Department of Education and said, you guys are all going home today because you won't let ChatGPT in the classroom. This is ridiculous, right? So yes, because he's worried about developing nations becoming better developed than America, he's panicking, and you're seeing it in the States. And so Project Stargate was a way to keep the United States sovereign dominance. The acceptance now of digital tokens in America, something I was proposing to your government 6 months ago that we should do, and some of the IMF put the kibosh on that now, right? That needs to be reopened. I proposed to Sheza in a paper I wrote for a sovereign digital currency. I wrote a very lengthy paper on this because I was proposing to about 4 months ago, prior to April, that we need to come up with a national currency. It's one thing to mine Bitcoin using Pakistani, that's great, right? But at the end of the day, it's no real benefit to Pakistan humans, right? But if we came up with a national currency, that would benefit us. You just heard, Trump is announcing it, right? So he's bringing the country into the blockchain era. He's bringing the country into the digital currency era. He's almost force feeding AI to everybody. He's building out the infrastructure, right? And so why? Because developing nations will be equalized and might leapfrog the United States. Pakistan, I came here to Pakistan in March. I came again in April. I'm coming again. I came again in May. I'm coming again. And all I've ever been saying to some heavyweights in Islamabad is you all need to back off on the bureaucracy, right? And allow innovation to thrive in the country and take some risk. Don't overanalyze everything. Don't overanalyze AI in education. Don't overanalyze AI in healthcare. Don't overanalyze AI in export in marketing. Don't overanalyze this. There's too much thinking going on in the country. It's a cultural curse. You need a feasibility report from Pakistan for everything. It's ridiculous. So take a leap of faith. Be creative like California. Take a leap of faith. What's the worst that'll happen? What's going to happen to your exports? Is it going to go down from 3.8 billion? No. What's the worst that'll happen? You'll spend maybe a few $100,000 in 1 year upskilling, 5,000 people. What's going to happen? You're going to blow a couple $100,000. Big deal. It's not going to affect your exports. Take a risk. You only have upside, upskill, and you will no longer be a developing nation. Or at least you'll be fast on the track to not being a developing nation. And when you guys show some risk tolerance, you guys getting the leadership in Pakistan I'm speaking to over this Zoom conference, when you guys show some risk tolerance and you guys take the chains of bureaucracy off of this machine that's sitting there of 255 million people that's ready to go to work, and you put some skilling around them at scale, right? You will demonstrate to planet Earth that Pakistan not only is taught, but Pakistan's actually doing it. And oh my God, the exports went from 3.8 to 4.8 in 4 months. Then you actually will wonder whether I even need foreign direct investment. Investment is only required when the company is starving. I don't look for investments. I don't need investments. Why? Because I'm cash flow. I have a sustainable business model. I only need somebody to invest in my company when my business model is failing, and I'm hoping that more money, right, will make my business more successful. And the investors are not going to invest in me if I've been at this business for 75 years. That's Pakistan, right? If I've been running the MindHyve.ai for 75 years and I can't seem to grow, that's a bad investment. So it may come to me in the form of debt financing and loans, and they'll lock up my country in debt. But equity investments, you're going to get tiny investments. But when my company is growing, right? And I can demonstrate it's growing very fast, and I can show that I'm willing to take some risk. I'm not over analyzing things. I'm actually piloting and prototyping and producing some real results, grassroots internally. The investors are like, okay, I, I'll take a risk on you now. So then the FDIs come up to, can you maybe dealing with what I call a high class problem? And the high class problem is you're growing so rapidly as a country, and investors want to throw money in, but that's the time you say, no, thanks, man, we're not open for investments this time. We'll let you know when we are. That's a high class problem to have. But you got to take the shackles off the system. You got to let the entrepreneurs breathe. You can't just set up IT parks only and expect that to work. Yes, you need infrastructure, of course. But the upskilling that I'm proposing, that I've been screaming about around the world, and I'm studying about it today in Pakistan too, that upskilling, which includes tailored education on sales, tailored education on marketing, pricing, negotiation strategy, all this stuff, and then finding a way to take whatever their product is in their head. As I told you, it could be geopolitical intelligence reports, or it could be social media marketing, whatever their product is, finding a way to fit that with a market, product market fit, right? Teaching them how to do that, that skill, and then shoving that into the market and monetizing it. That's what we need to do. And that's, entrepreneurship 101, only been explained to you in the context of a sovereign business model.
That's excellent. And I can see your passion in it and probably the frustration because you see the future and trying to get people to listen and get them on board is not
I
an
love
easy
my
feat.
country. I love my country. Okay. I
Yeah.
have this in my office, right?
Okay. Yes.
I'm Pakistani American. I mean, I love my country. Pakistan's a great, great place. Lovely place. Best food, best people, kindest people, warmest people, most genuine people, monstrous potential. I talk to my own staff in Lahore and I see the way these guys work, and they work beyond the level of any guy. I had one guy who worked for another company in Pakistan. I won't take the name of the podcast. And he says, Bilal sir, working for your company, I don't want to go home. And I said, why, Janzit, do you not want to go home? Because he said, everything I do here, even though I get the same paycheck, everything I do here, I know is one step to a much bigger vision you have. And I have fun working here. And so what that means is Pakistanis are motivated. And you take 50% of the population, 125 million people, and you motivate 125 million people, that's 3 times the size of Kenya. Kenya's 50 million people. You motivate 125, 150 million people, magic will happen. I promise you, magic will happen. And I'm passionate. Of course, I'm passionate because I see the potential, and I also see the roadmap to monetize that potential. I actually can visualize. I can write out a game plan and make it happen. I just wish it could all sort of come together.
And
And I'm
what do
doing my
you
part, man.
think?
I just gave you a couple bucks.
No, you're doing amazing work. And what do you think the average American thinks about Pakistan, or do they not just know it at all, or is it even a concern? They just want to get about their day. They don't care where the work comes from.
The
Or
average American doesn't care about Canada to the north and Mexico to the south. They don't care about Pakistan. They don't know about it, but couldn't care less. All of them see might see some news story. The average American is the average American, which is just they're trying to put their kids through college. They're stuck in 30 years of debt in some mortgage they got into, right? They're trying to save for their 401k retirement plan, and they hope and pray that every 3 years they can take a vacation to the Bahamas. The average American is a very simple man and woman. It just goes about their life, barbecuing hot dogs on a Saturday, watching football, drinking beer, and going back to work and grinding it out. That's the average American. The average American does not care about Pakistan, doesn't care about Mexico that said that's below us, and care about Canada that's north of us. The average American probably doesn't give a damn about leaving their home state of California. Okay. The average American does not care. But the non-average American, the leaders, they care about Pakistan. Of course they do. But not for the reasons you want them to care about Pakistan. You want them to care about Pakistan because you want to export more software and you want them to buy more software. And right now, America doesn't care about anybody to buy software because they can use Cursor AI and build software for a penny on the dollar sitting at home. So they don't even care about India. They don't care about Tata. They don't care about Infosystems. Not all of the leaders. If America was made up of 100 leaders, maybe 3 get it now. 97 don't get it. But I promise you, those 3 that get it, they golf at the same golf clubs where the other 97 are. and they're going to give some annual report of the golf club one day, and their next CEO, the other 97 that didn't get it, they're going, how the hell did you pull that off? And they go, well, I just reduced my operating costs by 75%. How? Because I use agentic AI for HR. I use agentic AI for finance. I use agentic AI for software engineering. I'm using agentic AI for marketing. My revenues went up 10x. And so then the other 97 are going to hear about it, and 100% will be using it at one point. So they don't care about anybody at this point. If we, Pakistan, if we don't change our business model and we don't create the dawn of the solopreneur billionaire, which is the paper you may have read, if we don't bring the solopreneur lakhpati, if that's all they strive to go to at this point, there won't be much to export. And I've had this conversation with Samba too, some very higher. There won't be much to export because you only export when there's demand for import. And America's not importing. America's becoming self-sufficient. So we must become self-sufficient. We have to be a wealth creation engine. Now, of course, it's going to take a while, decades maybe, before this attrition starts to happen in society. I'm a futurist. I think ahead 7 steps. Most people call me futurist. I think that's a maniacal kind of stupid moniker to put on me. But I do think about the future a lot. I do think about cause and effect, right? If this happens and what happens. I played chess as a kid growing up. I was always seeing moves in the board. So I'm just seeing moves at a national level scale. But I'm just going to say that there won't be much to export because there's nobody really wanting to import. Certainly nobody's importing talent much anymore. I mean, there are companies that are ingrained in the old way of doing things because they can't pivot that quickly. And it's hard to pivot a company with 100,000 employees, right? But the nimble ones are not importing. The young ones like me, they're not importing. The mid-sizes are not importing. The large scale are still out, but they will start to move away from that in time, right? I mean, there's a friend of mine who owns a company in India, 19,000 consultants, been around for 25 years. He told me, he goes, Bilal, I have not had a bench, meaning an underutilized staff, right? He goes, I've not had a bench, which means underutilized, non-billable resources, software engineers, because I've not had a bench under 8% in 25 years. I'm at 23%. They're not renewing the contracts, the customers. One of his biggest customers is Gap, the clothing company. I think, no, sorry, I do that. Some other customers, it's not Gap. I'm making a mistake. So we don't have a choice. You're not going to be able to grow to 3.8 just by selling more of the same that's not in demand as time goes by. As we're trying to grow our trajectories, you've got to understand the demand for what we're selling is declining. So we have to hedge and pivot. And so the Pakistan Software Export Board must take it upon themselves, almost borderline negligent if you don't, I would say, right? It would be almost negligent to not upskill. And listen, I'm not selling my product. It's not even ready in Pakistan right now, the corporate platform. So I'm not selling it. Go to ChatGPT. I keep saying use ChatGPT, okay? But at some point, if the product's available, great, okay? But now, still, empower these people to learn how to sell what they're selling, learn how to market, learn how to price, learn how to negotiate, learn how to ingrain themselves, learn how to be a value add to the customer. They need to. You don't have a choice. The day of the big software companies is over. The big IT export companies like Tata, Wipro, Infosystems, no, that's over. Even the day of the big law firm is over. Any major service provider that sold services at scale, legal services, architectural services, software services, IT services, back office processing services, billing and coding, the day of the service provider is numbered. And so any company that profited off of cheap labor, India profited off of cheap labor, Vietnam profited off of cheap labor, Pakistan was doing the same thing. We were profiting off of cheap labor because of the cheap cost of living in our country. And so the international buyers saw the gap. They said, oh, okay, I'm selling for this much, but I can buy service this much. I got a bigger gap. So that bigger gap was their margin. So they outsource. Well, they have no gap anymore. They have no gap for billing and coding. It's right there at their fingertips. They have no gap for legal services. They have no gap for software services. So why outsource? It's a nightmare outsourcing for American. The hour time differences, the vacation, the holidays, the payroll issues. It's an operational headache. Why do it? So we as Pakistanis need to have some foresight. We're a very reactive country. It has to come and smack us in the face, not once, 2, 3 times sometimes. We're finding Pakistan is a country we wake up. We're like, oh shit, we got to do something about this. And somebody said this once, Mahavrat, to me in Urdu. I'm going to say it in Urdu because I'm sure somebody listen, and I'll translate it in English. Laat ka bhoot baaton se nahi manta, which literally means a ghost that likes to be kicked doesn't learn from words. And that basically is a Mahavrat. It's a way to say that somebody's reactive. You have to get bitten before we react. We have to be proactive, right? And I'm telling you, this writing's on the wall. We should get together and be proactive and not wait for Pakistan's exports to start to take a major downtick for Abu Bakr to get on a plane and come to Washington, D.C. or in LA and sit down with the business owner and say, by the way, you used to be a customer of Pakistan, you didn't renew your contract, may I ask you why? And have that CEO say, unfortunately, we're using some sort of agents in our company and we didn't need it, so we didn't see the point anymore. And then Abu Bakr is like, huh, that's one customer. And then Abu Bakr goes on his tour and he realizes that's not one customer. Oh my God, that's everybody I talk to is thinking like this. And then he comes back and he sits there in Islamabad and PCF Office and goes, how did we miss this? Don't put yourself in that situation.
So you think companies like Accenture, I'm a former employee and I think you work for them briefly as well. They have 750,000 employees and 400,000 of them in India. Those types of companies are also in trouble?
Go do some research, man. Go on ChatGPT version 4.0 and ask this question. Say, is Accenture at risk for declining revenues due to the proliferation of artificial intelligence? Full stop. Do your research online and let me know. Full stop. These are two prompts. Don't ask me. Go look at the papers Accenture produced themselves. They're pivoting the company themselves. The managing partners Accenture realize this.
Yeah.
Then you just take that same prompt and where the word Accenture was, change that to TCS for Tata, change it to Infosys and present that prompt in again. And look what all these companies are trying to do. They're having an existential crisis.
I mean, I know we've heard about the $1 billion solopreneur, right? That's coming,
Yes.
the unicorn solopreneur company. The question is that good for society, or what's going to happen? Because is it not better to have a company like Accenture, which has 750,000 employees, although zero in Pakistan and 400,000 in India, but like having those in that 750,000 people employed, but then you have like one person that's employed and doing almost as much work and creating almost as much wealth, or would they be giving away their wealth like Bill Gates or someone else, 99% of their wealth?
I got so many ways to answer this question. When a company is a hyperscaler, people freak out about vendor lock. When a company divests and commoditizes services, people worry about too much dilution. Look, you never want a hyperscaler. You never want a hyperscaler in services like Accenture, and you don't want a hyperscaler in cloud, because then you got vendor lock. Okay? No business wants vendor lock. They want options. The best possible thing that could ever happen to an economy is competition. There are laws against it in America. It's called antitrust. If there's no competition, there's an antitrust law. You'll get the Department of Justice involved, right? Because you have to have competition. Now, if that competition were to be as granular as solopreneurs, so be it. So be it. It's a new paradigm, man. It's a new paradigm of thinking. So be it. What's the harm? If I can sit at home and I can make 500,000, 600,000, a million rupees per month, sitting at home and actually running a business, you as a country, you should be endorsing that. You're talking about probably one of the most diverse economies on the planet if 10% of your population are solopreneurs. If you got 25 million people that are solopreneurs, you've got risk diversification. You've got payments coming in from different countries. You've got flow in and out. You're pandemic agnostic at that point because so many different types of services being sold, right? You are not internet sensitive. I mean, all of the infrastructure issues Pakistan has that tends to crumble on is all because your exports are being controlled by hyperscalers, for Pakistan standards hyperscalers, that complain, right, about the infrastructure and they hire all the people. And if that CEO gets upset, then 16,000 staff members get upset and then bad stuff starts to happen. So what if you had those 16,000 staff people that work for some fictitious software company in Pakistan were 16,000 entrepreneurs and they're all making money? Now you got 16,000 people rooting for you. Would you rather have those 16,000 people working for one CEO that's mad at you because the internet went off one day and caused a ruckus on the internet, or 16,000 business owners, of which 1,600 are making money, the other are not? I say divest yourself of all the risk, encourage the solo. And by the way, it's not always going to be the solopreneur. What the concept of the solopreneur billionaire just simply means that one person has the capability to make $1 billion a year. But what I'm talking about, though, is small business ignition. Not everybody's an entrepreneur, but out of every 10 people, one will have that X factor. You'll hire the other 9. So you have a bunch of small businesses, but no hyperscalers.
Yeah. And what do you think about women in this AI economy, especially Pakistani culture? Is there something specific good for women in this AI economy? Because you see, or is it just the same as any other?
It equalizes.
Mm.
It's good regardless. It's good for you regardless of your religion, your gender, your age, the educational degree you have, whether you came from wealth or not, an aristocratic family or a farmer, it's irrelevant. It equalizes you. It gives everybody, if you just are fluent with it and are literate as to how to use it, it removes the shackles of gender, religion, socioeconomic disparity, educational credentials, access to wealth. It removes those barriers of entry for anybody, and it allows you to be creative and monetize yourself. So it is incredibly good for women.
Excellent. Bill, it's coming up to 2 hours on the podcast, so I really appreciate your time. Final words of advice for the Pakistani government on how we should be using AI, and what we can do to grow our exports, and anything else that I might have missed out on. Because I know you guys are doing excellent work. And if you want to highlight some words, I've got time to run as long as you need.
Let me take a sip of coffee. I've got 2 messages, one for the government and one for the citizens. The message for the citizens first is that you got to be AI first in your mind. When that means AI first in your mind, it means you've got to, at the most rudimentary level, these citizens need to start thinking about taking their queries, questions, and curiosity to ChatGPT and start brainstorming with it. Don't use it as a better Google. That's the first thing. That's called AI fluency. Stop. I want to tell the average person in the country, the average citizen, and I can switch to Urdu or English either way, but I'm just saying, I want to tell the average person to try to develop an AI first mentality. It's a conditioning you have to do. Okay, it's kind of like when you become religious, you have to condition yourself, right, to stay in wudu all the time and pray all the time. That sort of stuff. You have to condition yourself. And it's going to take a little bit of conditioning, and it's unlearning a lot of what you know. And a lot of what you know is as humans is it's an innate need to seek advice. We as humans have an innate need to go to my parents and seek advice, or my next door neighbor, or the most successful business owner, and ask them the question. Stop that. We've got to literally cut it like a drug and start turning to AI and start becoming fluent with it. That's number one to the citizens. And then the other thing I would say to the citizens before I go to the government, the other thing I would say to citizens is that stop looking to the government to create an environment in which suddenly you're going to miraculously become financially successful. It doesn't happen. I know there's a lot of people that always turn to the Pakistani government and go, do this for me, do that for me, do this, fix that, do this, do that, and hence everything's going to become nonsense. Okay? You got to learn to work with a broken system and do it for yourself. Pakistan's government, I'm telling the citizens of Pakistan, the Pakistan government does the best that they can given the limited resource they can. I've had conversations at the very highest levels. We have budget issues. We have to allocate. There's problems in education. We have a limited amount of money. And so I'm telling the Pakistani citizen, I'm looking you in the camera right now, I'm telling the Pakistani citizen, stop looking for a handout or some kind of infrastructural change that is going to miraculously make you successful. They'll do the best that they can. Their interests are aligned with you because the more money you make, the more tax they get, the more tax they get, the more the government makes money. And so as a result, they're aligned with you. But you're not going to get every need of yours met by them. Try to find a way to get your hustle tight with whatever they can give you. And I'm telling you right now, the only way you're going to get your hustle tight for now is not by going and getting yet another degree. Thank you for all the degrees you've got, but now's the time to monetize the degrees. So I'm telling you to go to some kind of AI tool and start to brainstorm with it and develop an AI first mentality. The rest will come. That's my message to them. My message to you, Amir, and everybody else in the Pakistani government, politicians, army generals, and bureaucrats alike, is that this concept of upskilling needs to change. It can't be only about credentialing in nursing, credentialing in I don't know, in computer sciences, more universities, more degree programs, more. This conventional education system is broken. The model is broken. Guys, I'm telling you, I'm not here to tell you, I'm not the doomsday. I'm telling you the model is broken. If you guys haven't seen it, then somebody's asleep at the wheel. Okay, the model is broken, right? Upskilling now is about the things we talked about, right? Learning how to sell, go to ChatGPT, use my product, go to talk to somebody else who uses ChatGPT. I don't care how you figure it out. Learn how to sell and make sure the sales tactics you're learning are tailored to your the business. Learn how to market, learn how to negotiate, and learn how to market locale specific, not just market. Everybody can run a Facebook ad campaign, but locale specific targeted marketing is a skill. AI does it very well. Learn how to market, learn how to negotiate. And if the government is going to create a program, and PSEB is Pakistan Software Export Board. If your business's agenda is what your acronym is, which you are the board to increase exports, please, pretty please, see the writing on the wall. There's not going to be much to export. And you have to pivot for it now. Don't be reactive, be proactive, pivot for it now. Set the country up for success. Exports are not as you remember them to be. And for that, we can have a different conversation later. But that's my only message to the government. Otherwise, you guys are doing a bang-up job. Listen, swear to God, I wouldn't put money in the country if I wasn't. And you guys are doing a bang-up job. Given the resources you have, mad respect to everything you and Abu Bakr and you guys are doing. DFDI, as I told you, I think before I left, was a world-class event. Literally, world-class event, right? So mad respect to all of you guys for what you're doing. Mad respect to Shaza for what she's doing. Mad respect to the government for doing the best that they can, given a broken system. The fact that you got 3.8 billion in revenue is kudos to you. Remittance is coming back. I heard we're the biggest ever in history. Fantastic. IT parks are great. Internet's going to be shoddy. That's fine. It's just one of those things we got to get over with, right? LA traffic's bad. I still got to battle it to get to LA. It sucks. You got to put up with it. What are you going to do? I wish I could take a helicopter and go, but I got to, grind it out for an hour and 45 minutes. So you got to grind it out with bad internet box. I will figure a way out. But really, lots of respect and kudos to all of you guys for doing a fantastic job. Keep it up. Just pivot a little bit. Get out of this over-analysis, feasibility. Let's think about this. More files. We need a pro forma. Give me a plan mindset if you want to help those very same people who I just told them, stop looking to government for everything.
And okay, final question. What can we expect from MindHyve by the end of 2026? So in the next 18 months, where do you want to be? And then how can we help you get there? Whoever's listening to the podcast.
The way you The way you help MindHyve is not necessarily by helping our revenues. Okay, there's not much to get out of Pakistan in terms of revenue. It's not really a business model for me. The way you help MindHyve is by aligning with me on my mission. My mission is equalization. Show that video to the world, please, when you get a chance. The equalizer video. I think you've seen it, right? It's not much. It's 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Show it to everybody. Align with me on the mission. The mission is equalization, which means let's start with e-learning. Let's equalize people's skills, not knowledge so much. Understand that there's a difference in skill training and knowledge training. Knowledge is mute. Get aligned with me on that. I agree that knowledge is moot for the most part. I'm not saying 100% knowledge is moot. I'm not saying everybody stop studying. For God's sake, don't take it the wrong way. I'm just saying instead of emphasizing so much on knowledge and knowledge training, which is what certificates are at the end of the day, when that certificate says PhD on it from NUS, or that certificate says MB on it from LUMS, or that certificate simply says diploma in electrical engineering. The certificate is theoretical. We don't need the theory knowledge. Let's align with me on practical skills training, right? And we could do that through AI incubation centers, accelerator programs, awareness and outreach. Even if we got a host of 30-minute podcast on prompt engineering for the average person, fine, let's do that. Let's get it started somewhere. Let's ignite this passion. So align with me there. And if you do that, then you're aligned with my mission. And my mission, which I will not stop doing ever, is to equalize healthcare and equalize education. And education is not about textbooks anymore or skills or diplomas. It's about skilling. So that's all I ever ask for is equalize me there. We make money, we don't make money. I don't really care. I got plenty of revenue coming from everywhere else. I do actually care about the average Pakistani citizen who doesn't know that they're going to get run over by a bus in the next 12 to 24 months when they graduate college. That's something that keeps me up at night. And not just in Pakistan, mind you, right here in California too. So I just don't want people to get run over by a bus. When I'm around, you're around, we can have these kinds of conversations. And we've got this kind of reach through your podcast, right? Let's use this platform. And please don't let people run over by a bus. Join me on my mission.
Excellent. And where can people connect to you, Bill, if they want to follow you? LinkedIn is the best?
Yeah. So, well, ideally, don't try to come directly to me. It's impossible to get a hold of me, as you can imagine. So preferably, first of all, go to MindHyve's website. So it's MindHyve, MindHyve.ai, right? So MindHyve.ai is the website for the company. That's something you should bookmark. Amir, I'll send you our YouTube, MindHyve's YouTube channel. There's some interesting videos, a lot of awareness there. I will send you, Amir. We have a WhatsApp community with about almost 1,200 people in it right now, where I'm often talking to the world about AI awareness, and there's some other chatter going on. Come ahead, join our WhatsApp community, get involved virtually online with us. And besides that, there's LinkedIn, but LinkedIn's nothing. LinkedIn's very corporate, right? I'm not doing much awareness on LinkedIn. It's basically our WhatsApp community is a big place, right? If you want to hear live from us every single day, and our website's good. But I would simply say, follow us on Instagram, MindHyve.ai, and Bill Faruki. Follow us on Facebook, MindHyve.ai, and Bill Bilal Faruki. Follow us on LinkedIn, MindHyve.ai, and Bill Bilal Faruki. Go to our YouTube channel for MindHyve.ai, watch the videos, and join our WhatsApp channel. I'll post it on our website one more time, the join link. Click it, join the channel, get involved, speak up. That's the best way to get in touch. Other than that, just shoot an email if you're interested to hello, HELLO, hello at MindHyve.ai. If you send an email to hello at MindHyve.ai, I believe it goes to about 10, 15 people, and somebody will try their best to get back to you.
Amazing. As always, Bill Faruki, thank you so much for your time. It's been really inspirational, really learned a lot, and I hope people that are listening to this take some action on this too. So thank you so much.
I have no doubt they will. Thanks, Amir. Thank you very much for your time. Regards to everybody.